Welcome into the latest edition of PL Express. Of course, we'll be talking about the title. We usually do, but there's a big focus on strikers today with Janusz Michallik and myself, Kay Murray. Obviously, Haaland setting, breaking records. We've been seeing that all season, but there's a lot of talk about other strikers at other clubs. Could Sadio Mane move to Chelsea? Who needs two more? Harry Kane on Manchester United? Which striker would be a good fit at Arsenal? They're all topics we're going to touch on today's episode. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's start with Haaland then, shall we, Janusz? What are we looking at here? 34th goal in the Premier League, his 50th of the season. He's now equalled the Premier League records of both Andrew Cole and Alan Shearer. First question is, what does he have that previous big name Premier League strikers and Premier League goal scorers didn't have? I'm talking the likes of Shearer, Cole, Rooney, Thierry Henry. What does Haaland have that they didn't?
Well, I think they all had great teams, but I think we have to say that he does have a great team, right? I mean, that's first and foremost. I suspect that he'd be scoring goals just about everywhere. I don't know if, at that rate, and certainly his relationship with Kevin De Bruyne is flourishing, and that's very, very important now to get that sort of service all the time. Although, I think he's one of those that you could make the case that he is scoring goals sometimes by himself. He does need help, as we all know it, and we've complained about that. But I think the most important thing is he has hunger, power, strength, and something that very few people talk about. His work ethic, right? I mean, that's incredible because, yesterday, just watching the game, I was thinking, I mean, what else can we possibly say about him that haven't been said? And that's not extremely obvious to everybody, right? You don't have to be an expert. Everybody can see that. And his work ethic, to me, is incredible. What he does defensively and trying to win the ball back and pressing and counter-pressing. He's one of those, at times. Now, City is a very good pressing team when they choose to, right? And then they know when to pick their times as well. But I've watched him at times doing it all by himself, starting and finishing the pressing as well, almost encouraging everybody to say, let's go, even though, usually as a striker, you usually get a shout from behind. It's like this, I remember playing, in all formation that there are good times and bad times to start pressing. And very often we used to laugh at these players. I said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this by yourself? We're not ready. We're not in a position to trap, or, on the sideline or wherever it may be. But he does it himself. And that's something that I think we have to pay attention, other than scoring goals, because he does that at an incredible rate. So just hunger, I think, wanting to prove everybody wrong how good he is. And he has done that. And he made us all look silly. All of us. I don't think there's one person that at one point or another didn't look for faults. And you know why that happens? Because I've been one of them. When you see somebody almost so perfect in terms of finishing, you always wanted to bring him down a little bit. You always looking, well, why? And I've done it. Remember, you and I have talked about it. And some of it is always true that in combination play, maybe he's not as good as others. But I think that drives him, as we can see it. And by his own admission, think about it. I mean, he still thinks for his size that he needs to be much, much better in the air in terms of finishing and scoring headers and all that. And you know what? I think he'll get there because, knowing your weaknesses and openly talking about him, it's not easy, right? Because you're given everybody a reason to say, well, he's not good in the air or he's not as good as he should be. So he is superb, no doubt.
Okay, so you've said the things that he's admitted that maybe he can work on. So let's flip that question then. What does Haaland not have that those big name before him, Premier League strikers and goal scorers, did?
Well, I mean, as always, he has to prove in the Premier League that he's going to be a winner all times. I don't think there's anything missing for as young as he is. I mean, think about it. I mean, he's now just in the beginning of his career. Look how young he is. I mean, when it's all said and done this season, he's already going to have a trophy, maybe two, maybe three. You at a team that consistently gets better with one or two players, right? I mean, one of the few teams in the world that cycle never ends. And that's not easy. We've seen that with Manchester United. We've seen that with Arsenal. We're seeing that with Liverpool to a degree. We see it with Bayern Munich. We see it with PSG. We see it with the big Barcelona, with the biggest teams in the world. And yet he's on a team that just adds one or two players and continues to drive. So I don't think there's anything that he's missing right now, even if I compared him to everybody else. Because how do you compare him to Thierry Henry, for example? I mean, it's impossible, and it's kind of silly. I mean, they're totally different players, right? I mean, he's never going to have uh, what Thierry Henry's had. It's impossible. He's not going to learn those skills. Of course, the one-on-one ability, gliding through the midfield if he picks it up deep and beating 3 or 4 players and scoring a wonderful goal. It's just not going to happen. So I don't think it's even right for us to mention it and to make it seem like he should be better at that, because it's not going to happen.
We spoke to Karl-Heinz Riedler, the former Borussia Dortmund striker himself, about Erling Haaland, and he was talking about what he's seen from him in the Premier League. He said he's never seen anything like it in terms of a player coming to the Premier League and doing that. Would you agree?
Yes, I mean, it's difficult because if you've seen what he's done as a youth player, you've seen what he's done. I mean, he was challenging at 18, 19, at 20, he was challenging Robert Lewandowski for the title 2 or 3 straight years. I mean, and this was already Robert Lewandowski at his absolute best on a team like Bayern Munich that were winning absolutely everything for 10 years straight and, winning the Champions League. And Borussia Dortmund, always a fight with Bayern Munich, but you always knew that they're going to be second best. And he was Lewandowski driving that team at that age. So it's that. I think it's that incredible, to add to everything that I've said, incredible maturity for such an early age. I mean, imagine coming to a league like Premier League and making it look not only easy, but just adapting to that league so incredibly well. And as I've said, it's easy to do it on a, you'd like to think that it's easy to do it on a team like Manchester City, but why did Gabriel Jesus didn't do it, right? So it's all relevant how we look at it. He stepped in. There were some doubts because there were always going to be doubts when you come at a young age from a different country. And, he showed everybody that, look, I can do this, no problem.
So Manchester City are now top of the table after that hard-fought win over Fulham. For the first time since February 17th, they sit on top. They're a point ahead of Arsenal. They still have a game more to play than Arsenal do. But we just want to take a look at their schedule, what's ahead for them, Janusz, right now. Go from left to right here, and this is what we're looking at. Obviously, at the end of that as well, we've got the FA Cup final. When you look at this, what stands out to you as a potential concern in Manchester City's run-in?
Nothing. The only thing that stands out to me is Real Madrid against Manchester City. Really. I mean, nothing else. With the squad as deep as they are right now, with everybody healthy, Phil Foden's getting minutes. I suspect he's going to be getting more minutes. It's just a rotation policy from Pep Guardiola. How is he going to treat the next two games against West Ham and Leeds United ahead of that game against Real Madrid? We already saw what he did in the last game. No Kevin De Bruyne, no Bernardo Silva, 2 players that are absolutely essential to any success that Manchester City will have for the rest of the campaign in the Premier League and to win the games against Real Madrid. So I suspect you're going to see a fairly strong side against West Ham. I think Bernardo Silva will come back. If there's any doubt about De Bruyne because of his issue, I don't think you're going to see him there. And against Leeds, it's going to be a rotated squad, something that he's done recently. He knows how to do it. He's done it, right? Because you saw Sheffield United, a big game in the FA Cup where he rotated to make sure that his players are ready at the time.
Riyad Mahrez just comes in and scores a hat-trick.
Scores a hat-trick and he doesn't play, right? I mean, it's incredible. So
there's still more than that, though. Obviously, there's Chelsea, Brighton and Brentford to then round out the Premier League season after those Real Madrid fixtures. Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, anything there that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it will depend on the momentum. If Manchester City are going to continue winning game after game after game, and I think a lot could, you could look at a sort of a setback, right? I mean, how do they deal with the setback? Because I think they will be able to avoid a setback, no problem. I mean, if they drop points somewhere, even in the Premier League, I still feel that Manchester City are going to be the champions because I think that Arsenal are going to have another setback as well. So, who knows? I mean, Chelsea game is not going to be easy, and there's other fixtures for Arsenal who are now obviously dealing with this whole situation psychologically as well. So it's not just any given game, but say a terrible performance against Real Madrid, I suspect could change all that.
Okay, so obviously there's nothing taken away. Winning the Premier League title is an amazing achievement. Winning the FA Cup would be too. If Manchester City don't win the Champions League this year, will it be looked on as a disappointment?
Well, absolutely. It will be. You have to say that. I mean, we're talking about the elite 1%, of clubs in the world who know that at some stage you have to confirm your dominance, not just in the Premier League, but sort of the squad that you have. And let's face it, when you add a piece like Erling Haaland that we've talked about, who has scored 50 goals in all competition, who has scored 34 goals, tying and breaking all kinds of records, and that's going to continue to happen, then you have to say to yourself that that going out would be a disappointment. Now, it's all relative, right? Because I am sure if Real Madrid wins this, I mean, everybody's going to be going crazy about Pep Guardiola, Manchester City, the amount of money they spend. And once again, it's a failure, this, that, or the other. But again, I'll look at it as a disappointment, not as a failure. And the reason I'm not going to look at it as a failure is that because if they go out, they're going to go against a champion of champions when it comes to the Champions League and in general, right? When you look at history of football, it has to come number one, two, or it depends on your fandom, I suppose, right? The Barcelonas of the world, Manchester United, but Real Madrid is the best of the best. So if they were to go down against the defending champion, what they've won in now, okay, help me out, 13 times, to me would be a disappointment. But
what if they go to the final and lose to one of the Italian sides?
Yeah, I think that would be and again, with all the respect, right? I mean, Milan, when you're talking Champions League, I mean, you have to talk, Real Madrid and Milan is right there, isn't it? So, Liverpool obviously
historically, yeah.
So historically, Inter is a massive club that has won that under Jose Mourinho as well. But I think given the quality where Milan are and Inter are, I think that would be a bigger disappointment, right? I mean, failure is such a big word, but I think this would have been the year. There would have to be some looking inside for Pep Guardiola, because if not now, when? And when you add pieces like that, when you have everybody at their best, when you have Kevin De Bruyne unplayable when he is there, right? When you have Erling Haaland, when you have Rodri, when you have all those pieces that we've talked about, and then you get to that final and you lose to Inter or Milan, I think, you say, wow, when is it going to happen? I mean, chances like that aren't going to be common over and over, even for a team like Manchester City.
All right, let's talk about Arsenal, because we need to look at what's ahead for them as well, especially the game against Chelsea, which is coming up next, which you've always felt was going to be a bit of a banana skin for them. And I'll get you to elaborate on that, Janusz. But you feel that Arsenal are still going to drop more points from now until the end of the season. Which games do you think those points are going to be dropped in?
Well, I mean, just look at the next two games. I mean, the way Newcastle are playing, and in particular in St. James's, right? I mean, do you think that Arsenal is just going to waltz in there and going to win it? I mean, I remember, wasn't it at Newcastle 4-4? Was that the Arshavin game? Or I can't remember. But, I mean, first of all, Chelsea, both teams are in a bad run, and that's what we have to look at Arsenal. Now, they're looking for a bounce, but this is a team that's now, 4 games winless. Chelsea, I think, on a 6-game winless streak. But I think, as I've always said, you get up, it's a big London derby. Chelsea players and fans are so disappointed that they will look for anything to bring them up. And this is one of those games where it's not impossible for Chelsea to get something out of that game. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a 2-2 draw. But then again, you look at Newcastle, and that's not going to be easy. So I do feel that Arsenal, it's going to go one of the two ways. It's always that way, I suppose, is that now maybe the pressure is off a little bit of Arsenal in a way, because they've conceded the top spot. They probably deep down maybe a little bit know that it's going to be difficult to see it through. And sometimes you play freer without that pressure, or it's just going to be continuation of that disappointment where now it's gone. Hey, it's a great season anyway. Nobody's going to say it otherwise. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think you look at these two games and you say to yourself, I mean, if Arsenal were to come out of those two games with 6 points, then the pressure would still be on Manchester City, no doubt.
Yeah, obviously it's still very tight at the top, isn't there? And there's a game to play. I want to talk about striker and potential striker options for Arsenal. Something we brought up on the FC show this week, Janusz. We asked Kieran Gibbs, and he said he'd like to see Ivan Toney going to Arsenal. He thinks he'd be a good fit. There've been a few other names linked as well: Dusan Vlahovic, Tammy Abraham, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Is there anyone that you think would be the best fit of those names, or maybe further afield, that would work at Arsenal?
Yeah, you and I talked a little bit before the show, and I wasn't sure about that. I think the first thing I said, Tammy Abraham, but he's been up and down. Had a great season last year. Start of this season hasn't been good, although he's been in a good form as of late, and obviously knows the league as well because he's been at Chelsea. But Ivan Toney, it's hard to argue this one. I love what he's doing because if you look at Arsenal, you have to be multi-dimensional when you come to there, and even though Brentford has a certain way of playing, I think you see it from Ivan Toney that you can play him just about anywhere. Obviously, he will be the focal point, the centerpiece, if you will, of that attack. But he can drift, he can play on the left, strong, powerful, good in the air, good technically, a player that knows how to combine, right? Even on a team like Brentford, that's pretty much direct. And I think Ivan Toney benefits from that, from the style of playing. But if you see his partnership with Bueno, I think it's been very good. Those two are combined very well. So I think, putting him on a team like Arsenal with that creativity, with the pace on the wings, I think Ivan Toney would be very good. As I've said, I like that he's powerful because we talk about strength, but he's a powerful striker. And I think, if you look at Arsenal, you need that. He's defensively pretty good. He's not afraid to come back and win tackles as well. So I think given the names that you've given me, look, Dusan Vlahovic, great season at Fiorentina, obviously struggling right now at Juventus, not even starting. It would be a new country, new league. I think go with what you know. And you know what? Ivan Toney at 27, perfect age, right? You step in because for Arsenal, you have to look at next couple, 2-3 years, and that's exactly what you're going to get out of players like Toney. Probably his best is yet to come. With each season, he's contributing more, scoring more goals. So that's not a bad shout.
Crazy 90 minutes of football, finishing 4-3. A prediction that Dan Thomas had, actually. Fair play to him on our ESPNFC show. First of all, Liverpool, any chance at all of a top 4 finish?
No, not at all. The top 4 is done. Yesterday, I was talking about here on ESPN, and I just don't see it. It's a little bit too late. 4 straight wins. It's good. It gives Liverpool a lot of hope, which maybe we'll talk about. But in terms of what's happening at the top, Newcastle winning, Manchester United, that was an important win. It wasn't easy. Manchester United played well, but it struggled, just 1-0. But that to me will be enough going forward, and Liverpool will not get there.
You said we'll talk about it because I know you have a feeling that Liverpool have done what they needed to do after what's been a tough time for them. But it feels like if you're a Liverpool fan, it must be like, every single week, especially in a game like this. But you feel there's an improvement and they're showing signs of recovery?
Yes, I think this is important, and you and I have talked about in particular with Chelsea. And remember, Chelsea and Liverpool were neighbors in the table, not that long ago, right? I can't remember 9, 10, 11, but they were very close. And we were looking at both clubs as having a really, really bad season, and we were wondering, what's going to happen, right? Is because to change that around, who knows how long it takes, right? And I remember saying that with Chelsea, more so than with Liverpool, is that, I see them when Chelsea were buying, all those players, Liverpool were obviously not. But I was saying, well, you need to show progress now. For the rest of the season, you need to do a little bit of an Arsenal of a couple of years ago where they were 8th 2 times and then last season got to the 5th place. And you say, okay, there's progress. Not in the top 4. That's not good, obviously, but bodes well for the season ahead. And this is what Liverpool is doing. This is absolutely excellent because I think we all knew and when you're missing so many big players, the Luis Diaz, the Bobby Firminos of the world, and Van Dijk's, Konates, and they've had the share of injuries, Thiago Alcantara. No wonder that you can't perform at that level. I think that Liverpool still should have done better, but I could understand that this is not a total rebuild. On top of that, and maybe most importantly with Liverpool, getting those players back, winning some big matches, and that's important, is that the biggest thing to me that maybe is not talked about enough or at least you and I don't talk about it enough, then now we have a belief in Jurgen Klopp, because that was a question. Can Jurgen Klopp do it again? Has he been there too long? Hey, remember at Borussia Dortmund, 7 years, this, that, or the other. And all that, those were good facts, I think. And it was maybe good to bring that up. But that to me is the most important, because going forward, there is plenty. We've talked about the midfield, how it needs to change. And you know what? Jurgen Klopp is a stubborn man, and we can see that. I don't know him, but we all can
I
tell.
know where you're going.
Trent, right? I mean, changing
Trent
that.
Alexander-Arnold, because his resurgence continues, Janusz.
But why didn't he do that before? Surely he thought about it. I mean, Gareth Southgate thought about it. He's played him in a game at, I don't know, maybe, wasn't it Andorra? It was one of those smaller games.
You mean, why didn't he do it before now?
Yeah. Why all of a sudden now? But you know where I'm
now
leading.
It maybe needed more. They've had success before when everything was going what it
No,
was. Maybe it finally is the final straw for him.
Early in the season, I mean, Trent has struggled at right fullback for the entire season. This happened just recently. Why not do it in the January? Why not? Jurgen Klopp knows. I mean, he's seen Pep Guardiola doing it. He's seen Mikel Arteta do it with Zinchenko, right? It was a little bit of, why not do it before? And as I said, it was done by England. And Gareth Southgate didn't believe that it was the time, and he was ready for it. But this is long ago. So going back to what I was saying, Jurgen Klopp, the resurgence now is important, going and building for the next season, because now you're getting, Gakpo's been absolutely wonderful. Salah is Salah. Diogo Jota scoring every game, just about, unbelievable winner in whatever, 90, the winner against Spurs. Darwin Nunez, that he's going to have to work on. So that's enough there. Okay. In the midfield, now Trent solves a little bit of that problem, but it's going to be interesting, because I still think, even with that change of system a little bit, I still think they need 2 quality midfielders. And the biggest issue now, because the biggest issue was in the midfield. Everybody said it was the midfield. Don't worry about defending. Van Dijk's going to come good. Well, Van Dijk is nowhere near his best, and he's had some games under his belt right now. There is no viable center-back partnership at Liverpool, and that's scary, because Konate hasn't shown that he can do it yet. And Trent, obviously you have to move him around because his deficiencies defensively, and even Robertson hasn't been at his best. So there's still some issues, but obviously a strong finish will give Liverpool some hope, and transfer market in summer is going to be important. But as I said, most importantly, Jurgen Klopp now probably feels, look, we go again, as he often says.
Yeah, and so you definitely, just to clarify, you feel that Jurgen Klopp is still the right man to take them forward and to get them out of it.
I always felt that way, but in the back of my head, I, like everybody else, there's always that, you have to have some doubts. You can't just say, oh, I absolutely know. How would I know? I see a team that's not performing as well as it did for the reasons that we all know. But I said, well, maybe that message from Jurgen, that 1% in the back of your head. But I'm glad that it's turning right now. And Jurgen is probably, I mean, he's almost, I have to imagine that he's actually looking forward to the next season to show, hey, don't forget about us. We're going to be challenging for the title.
Okay, next question very quickly. Does Daniel Levy have to go?
No, I don't know if he has to go. I mean, he's done so much for this club, but I just think that he has to cede control of the club to the right people, right? And that starts with, director of football. Paratici's gone, as we know. He has to pick somebody that not only he trusts, but he delegates. That's his biggest problem, I think anyway, from everything that I see, once again, not knowing him personally, in biggest jobs in the world, being football, sports, or business, you have to have people around that you trust. But most importantly, you have to have people that you're willing to delegate and make decisions, final decisions, right? You as the boss want to know about it, but that's something that he doesn't do well. So massive summer for them, because if they do the things right, then I think you're going to see progression from Spurs. If you don't, we're going to be talking about the Spurs team with this greatest stadium in the world right now that's going to be falling behind everybody else.
Let's talk about Harry Kane while we're here then. Who needs who more? Harry Kane needing Manchester United, or Manchester United needing Harry Kane?
Yeah, I don't think that Harry Kane needs Manchester United as much as they do, because Harry Kane, I mean, name the places, right? Say even if he goes to Bayern Munich, I mean, he's going to instantly be looking at winning trophies. Bayern at Bayern, whatever happens now is unusual. We can say that. There's going to be some changes, I'm sure, in the offseason, even if Bayern wins that. But, they're going to be back in no time. Bayern Munich doesn't need 2 or 3 seasons to turn the ship around. So say he goes there. I mean, I'm sure anybody out there, there's 2 or 3 clubs that will gladly take him at any money because he's consistent, even on a bad Spurs team, as we see it. Every time they lose, could be 4-3, 6-1. It doesn't matter. He scores just about every game. So look, I think Manchester United need him, but obviously they're going to look at the price. They're going to look at the future as well. The immediate future, I think that Harry Kane can still deliver. If they're looking more towards next 5-6 years, then probably he's not the man. But I think Harry Kane's not worried about this at all. If Manchester United don't come knocking, there's going to be a number of teams, and Harry Kane's going to continue to do what he does, and that is score goals consistently. I'm sorry.
Yeah, consistently. On the subject of Manchester United, Erik ten Hag has said that people who call Bruno Fernandes's captaincy into question, he thinks it's crazy. Do you agree with him?
Yes, I do. I mean, he's always been the best player. Even when Manchester United in the beginning of the season were awful, and we were thinking, my goodness, this is the end of Manchester United. I mean, this is all within one season. I think Bruno Fernandes was by far the best and most consistent player on that team. So, I mean, just remember the game against Sevilla when he was suspended, the away game. And then he comes back, wonderful once again. Look, again, this game moved from center on the right side, no problems, involved in just about every play, just about every good. Look, I mean, if it's not for Kevin De Bruyne, he's the best midfielder in the league by far. And the only thing is that you have Kevin De Bruyne, who, as I said before, I mean, as we've been talking about Erling Haaland, you and I, Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne is more important to Manchester City than Erling Haaland. No 2 ways about it. So Bruno has to compete with that, but that's good. I mean, he's an excellent player, and look, I mean, there are moments.
Okay, so by that token, though, is Bruno just as vital to Manchester United as De Bruyne is to City?
Absolutely, two players. Well, more so to Manchester United even, because as much as I said, look, Manchester City can do what they've done, and they've proven it without Erling Haaland. But I don't think they can do what they've done without Kevin De Bruyne. If Kevin De Bruyne is, they can't, right? Whereas at Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes is the man. There's no Erling Haaland. There's, you can talk to me about, Rashford all you want, and I can appreciate what he's done and how much he's improved this season. But still, I think none of that is happening. I mean, just look even in the last game. I mean, how many times Bruno has found Rashford in that position as well. So I think he is the most important player on that team, no doubt. Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, go and find, if you're watching this, go and find what Erik ten Hag had to say about Bruno Fernandes. He breaks it all down tactically of how important he is to the team and why he's that important to the team. It's really interesting to read. Last question. Sadio Mane has been linked with a move to Chelsea, Bayern apparently willing to let him go. What do you think of this rumor?
Well, I mean, any rumor, and you go to Chelsea because they spend money, they buy everybody. Again, you have to say that they have so many players like him there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. First of all, I don't know if this sort of player that they absolutely need. They just signed Mudryk on that side, and as we've mentioned, so many players that can play wide left, wide right. I mean, we've seen Sadio Mane play through the middle at times, mostly at Liverpool, but only a few times. I don't know if he's the man. He's had a very difficult season because of injuries. He's had a very difficult season because of his, fist fight with Leroy Sané. I don't know, as much. And, look how a season can change things. I mean, massive doubts that they didn't have. Here we were always talking that Sadio Mane perhaps caused the collapse of Liverpool. And, we've said that because how important he was to that team. And then within the season, because of injuries and because of issues that he's had in the dressing room, or that one issue, I don't know if there's any more. All of a sudden we have doubts about Sadio Mane. But I couldn't sit here honestly and say that Sadio Mane is the type of player that Chelsea Football Club don't have and need. So no, I would not be going in that direction.
So that's Janusz's verdict on that. Thanks so much for being with us for another week on PL Express. We'll be back next week to do it all over again.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.